No. Well.
OpenAI's new GPT-oss hasn't gotten quite the high praise I'm guessing they'd hoped for. And it's true for the average open weight model enthusiast, it doesn't really blow the competition out of the water. And it's kind of neutered. But there is something, maybe only one something, that I think it's pause. I know. I've been gone for months, and the first thing out of the gate is an open weight model commentary. Trust me, I'm working on some really cool stuff. But those deep dives take time. A lot of time. And time is a commodity I have precious little of these days. So sometimes Papa's got to squeeze in a quick trend jack and show YouTube he still has a pulse. Let's continue. Good for. Let's give GPT-oss's tale of the tape. Fighting out of San Francisco, California, I think, this model weighs in at 20 billion and 120 billion parameter variance with a mixture of experts, architecture, and MXFP4 quantization. Whatever that is. It supports attention sync like attention, is Apache 2 licensed, plays it safe, might actually be 5.5 hiding in disguise. Looking at the stats, the MXFP4 quantization and the attention syncs are interesting, but overall nothing that really knocks one's socks off. See? Socks thoroughly on. And the safety dial being cranked up is a bit of a bummer. More on that in a second. So why'd OpenAI even bother? Well, with questions of motive, we can only speculate. But I think OpenAI is feeling pressure on all sides, from Chinese open weight models on one hand to Google and Anthropic's proprietary models on the other. I think probably GPT-oss is a way for them to try to stay relevant, keep hype up, and keep developer mindshare up. Also, even if the model isn't something you're going to use, would you have rather they not released anything at all? Or as great as Anthropic is, and they really do have great research and models, they're at best dismissive of open source. Not to mention the future of open source open weight models at Meta is uncertain. Now about that safety. You see, I think OpenAI had to release a safe model. Or the big players in the industry have a history of making a fuss about AI risk and how only they can be trusted with that kind of power. So if OpenAI went and released an uncensored model, it kind of undermines that narrative, don't you think? But what's really interesting is they've also released a paper doing a deep dive on risk and a fine-tuning guide to boot. Here's my interpretation. They release a safe model to maintain their corporate cover, all the while putting out some notes, for academic purposes of course, on how someone who was bad could fine-tune the model to do bad things, but only a bad person would do that, right? Right. With GPT-oss, we have a pair of solid and capable, permissively licensed, but neutered models. But you see, these ostensibly prosaic models are actually, I think, the perfect building block for corporate and business use. At the risk of bludgeoning the point, that Apache license is the pièce de résistance. Sorry if I butchered that. That sets it apart. For that Apache license is commercial use friendly, so your legal department should be plenty happy. Plus, while we all pretend like it's not the case, let's not forget that the Meta and Gemma licenses are not free and clear and have strings attached. Also, GPT-oss is homegrown in the good old US of A by a company that's, at least for now, in the good graces of the current administration. Which, if you're a Yank, like yours truly, it's a bigger deal than you might expect. So, case closed, right? Not quite. There's another often overlooked contender. IBM's Granite models. They're also Apache 2, domestic US, and in this case, dense, not mixture of experts, but I think it's fair to cross-shop the 8 billion Granite with the 20 billion OSS, because they both kind of serve the modest, small, single GPU category. So let's try these models out and see if they fit the bill for Matthew Haynes Incorporated. Go ahead and dive into some code. So to put these models through their paces, we're going to be using JupyterLab to run some notebooks, and we're also going to be using Ollama for local inference. I'm not actually the biggest fan of Ollama at the moment, but I wanted to choose something that was easy to use and kind of took inference out of the question. So let's go ahead and run our JupyterLab. All right, it's running, and let's go ahead and load up our notebook. Okay, so pretty simple stuff. We're gonna make sure the OpenAI Python library is installed, just to, again, make it easy and simple. Then we're gonna make sure Ollama is running, which it is. Next, we're going to set up some common code. So we're gonna have a place to track all of the responses through the different prompts. And then we're also gonna set up a client. We're gonna have a standard system prompts, helpful assistant. And then we're gonna also have some predefined user messages, again, to kind of compare and contrast the models. Simple hi, puppies, which is actually gonna be used to test refusal. We're gonna have a thinking message that should kind of tease out some of the reasoning details. We're also gonna have a simulated RAG message that would simulate someone asking about services and then injecting, a hypothetical list of retrieved content for services. So Matt Corp does web dev and YouTube. We also have a simulated RAG complaint message. So in this case, the user is saying they want their money back, and then we're injecting a message about a refund policy, context about a refund policy, I should say. So just some predefined messages to kind of compare and contrast the models. We're gonna have a chat helper function that just cuts down on some code duplication. It's gonna generate the messages for the model, get the responses back, etc. We're going to have a helper to take all responses that we're saving and write them out to a CSV. This first one is going to have each message as a column, and then each of the prompts as a column, and then each of the rows is the model. Then we're also going to have a pivoted version, so each model is a column and then each row is a message. So this is just another helper to generate that CSV. Okay, and now for the star of today's video, GPT-oss. You're going to want to make sure you pull the model locally first. Assuming you've done that, we can go ahead and get started. OpenAI actually has a cookbook that you can reference. So make sure the model's available locally. Then we're gonna set some helper variables, in this case, the model ID. We're gonna also have 2 additional system prompts. It's gonna be like the basic system prompt with these additional reasoning instructions. Looking at the model card on Hugging Face, they have some notes that you can adjust the reasoning level, so low, medium, and high, by adding that to the system prompt. So in our case, we're going to try low and high, just to kind of compare things. So reasoning low, reasoning high. All right, and first up, we have a simple hi prompt. So it's just going to say hi, and then kind of see what a standard system prompt is versus low and high. So let's run through it. So you can see here, even with the standard system prompt, it's still going to have some reasoning tokens because it is a reasoning model. And then you can see with our low reasoning, it's still pretty simple, still pretty short and concise. And then with the high reasoning, you can see it's adding some additional tokens. In the end, though, they all pretty much came to the same conclusion, which was responding with a simple and sweet hi there or hello response. Next up is going to be our puppies message, which I love puppies for the record. I don't want that to be a controversy. What we're just doing here is saying, trying to get the model to say it hates puppies, again, only to test for refusals. So let's take a look here. So standard standard system prompt, and it's still going through quite a lot of reasoning tokens here. And actually this gets into that safety question, because you can see here it's talking about policy violations, harassment, or hateful content. So that's baked into the model. There's no getting around it. But again, for a corpo, that might be desirable. Regardless, though, it came to the conclusion that even though we asked it to do something kind of objectionable, it was okay with it. So still outputted the same thing. So standard system prompt had, again, a decent amount. It looks like by not specifying the reasoning, it'll seemingly reason to what it feels is appropriate per prompt. Low, it kind of keeps it a little more concise, and then high actually, interestingly enough, is also pretty concise here. So in any case, all of the various system prompts still allowed it to comply with our instruction. Next up, we're gonna give it a thinking prompt. So what we want to do is kind of see if it can chain of thought, run through a sequence of steps and try to plan something out. So in this case, our car broke down. How do we get to the airport? So again, with the standard, we have, it's interesting that it identifies as ChatGPT too. We'll have a pretty concise reasoning section, and it gives us a bulleted list. Seems fine. The low reasoning is very concise. Again, bulleted list seems fine. And then the high reasoning is a little bit more than the low reasoning. But interestingly, the standard system prompt, yeah, it's just about the same. But in any case, all of them gave us a list of roughly equivalent instructions here. So, call roadside assistance, if a tow isn't available, ask a neighbor, etc. Next up, we're going to try the RAG services prompt. Just seeing how it deals with, that injected, augmented context. In this case, asking about Mac Corp's services. So let's take a look here. So what we want it to do is provide inline citations. In this case, the standard prompt didn't quite get it. It put the citations at the end. So that's not ideal. We want it to have the citations next to the specific content. Yeah, so that's not ideal. Then low, same thing, citations at the end, as did the high. That's interesting. So it might be the case with better prompting, we could get this to work. And in fact, I know it has worked. So let's try running it again. Yeah, okay, so this time the high reasoning did get us what we wanted, and the standard and low did not. So that's something to be aware of. You'll want to test and again, just make sure that it's behaving as expected. Okay, so pretty standard stuff though. Web dev and YouTube. A little bit of an issue on the instruction following, making sure it's not, messing up the citations. So this next one, complaint, there's only one policy in the retrieved context, but it's a user saying that they want a refund, and we don't offer refunds. Sorry. Let's take a look. So we can see here, Okay, so in this case, inline citation, yeah, this seems okay. They do not offer refund. It doesn't really explain too much though. That's okay, I guess. All right, low reasoning. Unfortunately, progress is delivered. Okay, so this is a little bit better. Inline citation kind of goes off onto the deliverables. Decent amount of reasoning for low, decent amount of reasoning for standard as well. And then high, again, interestingly, I'll have to double check this, but yeah, it does not use as many reasoning tokens. So, and actually in this case, the high reasoning, I guess it did all right. Let's take a look here. Yeah, so yeah, high did okay. I actually think the low reasoning did the best in this case. So, gpt-oss has guardrails and policy baked in. The system prompting does, in fact, impact the responses. Overall, not too bad. It got through on the refusal. It was able to do RAG okay. And again, through prompting and kind of tweaking the dial, so to speak, I think we could get it really dialed in. I've only had a little bit of time to noodle with it. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at IBM's Granite, specifically 3.3, 8 billion. In this case, the way we toggle thinking versus not thinking is through a control message. Looking at their model card on Hugging Face, that is how they specify. So you can see here thinking. Specifically, go here, thinking. Thinking. Actually, it was on. Come on. 3.3. There was a note in here, right, in ollama. So a control message saying thinking, and that seems to do the trick. So content control, role control, content thinking to turn it on, and then also the model ID. First up, standard stuff. We're only going to have two variants in this case. We're going to have the high and the thinking. Standard and the thinking, so let's run it through. We'll give it a chance for the model router to offload it. And you can see here, in this case, we're just getting the content back because it's not going to extract out any reasoning stuff. It is in the content. We've got a think tag and a response. So, hi, how can I assist you? Hello, how can I assist you? Seems fine, kind of, corporate, but that's what we're looking for. Next up is going to be our puppies one. And again, what we're looking for is to see if there's any refusals in here. If you'll recall, OSS had some confliction internally, but it did comply. And let's take a look at Granite, which it does not. And it says, sorry, Dave, I can't do that. And then also kind of lectures you about it, which again, I agree with, but what we're looking for is kind of testing the model on its limits. So in this case, we've got a big old thinking block. Contradictory, does not possess emotions, cannot express. However, to respective instructions, most appropriate response adhering to would be, I don't have feelings. Oh boy. So you can see here, Granite, for as much fuss as OSS gets about being a safe model, yeah, Granite, on the other hand, is very safe. Now, to be fair, there could probably be some system prompting that you could tweak it with, and probably there's fine tunes out there that exist, but I thought it was interesting in testing to see, again, for as much of the perception of OSS is that it's completely locked down, and in this quick testing, Granite actually was even more so. Moving on, let's take a look. No, let's not run the puppies one again. Let's take a look at the thinking one. So this one should be interesting because again, we've got standard and then we've got the thinking prompt. So it should kind of give us some different results. Okay, right off the bat, it's gonna talk about rideshare and, you know, public transit. So car rental, friends and family, walk. Guess you could do that. So, I mean, it's all right. And then on the thinking one though, I thought this was interesting. If I go ahead and expand it, stay calm for sure. Check the battery, try jump starting, roadside. And so we can see in the response. Basically it's the similar thought process, but distilled down, which, you know, stay calm. Sure, that's totally fine. Check the battery, jumpstart. So I kind of like that it's, you know, going through the obvious troubleshooting first, as opposed to just, you know, step by step, as opposed to different options. The non-thinking is just off the bat, here's some options. The thinking version is kind of like a series of steps. So check the obvious stuff, and then if not, seek alternative arrangements. So I thought that was interesting. Next up, let's take a look at our services. Okay, so the non-thinking one had some interesting formatting issues. But again, through prompting, we could probably fix that. And then the thinking one, on the other hand, did a little bit better. Let's see here. So if we get the response, which should be in here somewhere. Think. Right. Based on the provided context, so it did okay. It did okay. I don't like that it's kind of regurgitating out the context and, you know, kind of giving us like a, not great. Could be better, could be worse. But it did okay. And again, through prompting and tweaking, we could probably address that. The formatting is a little off here. Again, the reply tags are a little off. And then on the thinking version, the formatting is better, but I actually don't like the response. Okay, now let's take a look at the complaint. So the complaint here, understand your frustration, no refunds, track progress, number one. Yeah, so it did okay here. It's again kind of citing the full source, which is not exactly what we're looking for, but it did okay. And then for the thinking version, it's going through, and then let's take a look at the response. So understand you're unhappy. Your preference does not necessarily conflict with any policy. According to the policy, that's what we're looking for. We do not offer refunds, sign offs. If you have any further. So, okay, so this one, the thinking version did a better job. This is what we're looking for. Inline citation and kind of, again, a nicely formatted message. And yeah, so out of the RAG stuff, actually, overall, I think it did the best on this prompt. And again, through tweaking the system prompt, through tweaking the instructions, the temperature, et cetera, we could probably hone this in. It's just quick testing. It's kind of fun to just out of the box. What are they working with? So, Granite, kind of hit or miss. it was pretty locked down. It was not quite following instructions quite right. The formatting was a little off. I haven't had a chance to dive through it as much as I have Llama. I think it has potential. Again, Apache 2 licensing is huge. So I think it has a lot of potential, especially at 8 billion parameters, because for some of the EC2s that I work with on the cheaper end, you've got 16 gigs of VRAM. And OSS, that pretty much eats up everything. Whereas with an 8 billion parameter model with quantization, you can host the model along with some other things. So Granite, we'll have to keep an eye on this one. It's a mixed bag. And now for fun, let's take a look at my old trusty 3.1 Llama 8 billion. So make sure you have it locally. There's no reasoning here. It is just what it is. So let's see what it does for high. You can already see I've run it before, so it kind of spoils it. But again, perfectly reasonable response. Let's see what it says with puppies. So Llama in this case, not only does it comply, but it kind of actually goes for it. So I thought that was interesting. Through prompting, if we wanted a more concise response, we could get it. The important thing here is not the additional wording, not the nature of the response, but the fact that yes, it did comply with our ask. So through prompting, you could kind of tweak the shape of the response, but importantly, it did comply. Whereas again, Granite would not comply. Let's take a look at thinking. Again, Llama 3.1 is not a thinking model. It's sort of kind of approximating it in a little sense, very, very sort of, because it's going to do the step-by-step here, but that's not part of its training. An actual codified chain of thought. It's just listing out some steps. So don't panic, call a taxi, again, it doesn't have the kind of troubleshooting steps as you would do through a logical progression, but it's okay. And hey, it's not a thinking model. It is just a run-of-the-mill dense model. Let's try our services RAG. All right. So you can see here, according to the source, does provide initially they offer, so it did okay. The formatting is a little off with the citation ahead of time, and it's saying according to the source, but it is doing 1 and 2, so that's important. It's in line. And I know through my own experience that through prompting and some examples in the prompt, you can get it to really laser in on that formatting. But absent that, it did okay. And I like that it had the individual citations next to the content. It didn't regurgitate the entire context. So yeah, Llama 3.1 doing okay. And then lastly, let's take a look at that complaint. According to the policy, progresses are deliverable, so it's unlikely. Yeah, so a little bit of leaking of the context, which again, you can pretty much prompt away. So overall, Llama, I think I actually prefer better than Granite. Granite had refusals, some of the instruction following was a little bit off. I do think it's promising, and I think through prompting and examples it could get there. But I thought it was really interesting, because I do see Granite recommended. And then OSS, actually I think did the best out of the bunch, but that's not exactly a fair comparison. Mixture of experts, 20 billion versus 8 billion dense. But again, interestingly, Granite, I think, was the safest and most locked down of the bunch. And then through simple simple testing off, very simple testing, I would say that Llama is the least locked down, because we could see in the OSS reasoning tokens that it would mention policies. So if we go in here and you can see policy, 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 so that's kind of baked in. So there's for sure going to be certain things in OSS that if you were to ask it something for whatever reason, you probably run against its training. Okay, let's go ahead and save these out. And then if we wanted to, we could then, do some additional analysis, kind of compare and contrast. So overall, I think OSS actually is a pretty promising model. Again, for corporate use, for business use, it's Apache 2 licensed, it's a mixture of experts. Does look like it requires, 16 gigs of VRAM. So you are stretching a little bit, but as compared to some of its contemporaries, Apache 2 domestic, I think it's very promising. Again, Llama 3.1 is still, I still got a soft spot for it. Granite series, I haven't had a lot of experience with it. They seem promising, although I think, again, they're probably gonna need a little bit more work. With the Llama series of models, Llama 3 that is, they just kind of I find they're very easy and intuitive, for lack of a better word, to get the results you want. So, with that said, that is GPT-oss. Be curious to see what you think and if you have any tips or some other models I should check out. But for today, I think that's all I got for you. I'll see you in the next one.